Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Let's start our deep dive today with a really complex and long-standing issue between India and Sri Lanka. We're talking about the maritime disputes in the Palk Straits.
Right, and at the heart of it, you've got this fisheries crisis, but also the whole question around Kachathu Island's sovereignty.
Exactly. And Prime Minister Modi, ahead of his visit to Colombo, mentioned wanting a humane approach, trying to balance livelihoods with conservation.
Which is crucial.
Yeah.
Because, this isn't just lines on a map. It's deeply about livelihoods and, frankly, environmental damage, too.
How so? What's the core of the fisheries dispute?
Well, it's mainly about Indian vessels, particularly these large mechanized bottom trawlers operating in Sri Lankan waters.
Right, I've heard about those.
Yeah, and this practice, it was actually banned in Sri Lanka back in 2017, but it continues. And it's devastating. It just rips up coral beds, shrimp habitats.
Destroying the ecosystem.
Completely. And that severely depletes fish stocks. Now, this affects Sri Lankan fishers, obviously. But ironically, it also hits Tamil Nadu's own smaller, artisanal fishers.
How does it affect them?
Because the big trawlers deplete the nearshore resources that these smaller boats rely on. So it forces everyone into these contested waters. It's almost a conflict within the Tamil communities themselves,
That's a really important nuance. It's not just India versus Sri Lanka.
Precisely. And you have international frameworks like UNCLS, the Law of the Sea, and the FAO's Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries. Both stress sustainable practices.
So there's a clear call here, isn't there, to distinguish between the different types of fishers?
Absolutely. The artisanal fishers with their generational rights, their subsistence fishing, they need a humane solution. Accommodation, maybe?
But the commercial trawler operators?
That's different. Their profits are coming at a direct cost to the environment and other communities. The source suggests maybe direct talks between fisher groups.
Like fisher organizations from both sides talking quotas or regulated access for the small Tamil Nadu fishers.
Exactly. Something to help their subsistence. And for that dialogue to work, you need understanding. Community sensitization.
What does that involve?
Well, Sri Lankan Tamil MPs, maybe their media too, could help people in Tamil Nadu understand the hardships their fishermen faced during the Civil War. Decades of restricted access, lost income.
Framing them as fellow victims, not adversaries.
Yes. Remembering the compassion Tamil Nadu showed refugees back then, building those kinds of bridges, that's essential for peace there.
Okay, let's tackle the elephant in the room, or perhaps the islet in the straits, Kachathivu. It often gets blamed for everything.
It's this tiny, barren place less than half a square mile. Really, it only hosts the St. Anthony's Church, visited annually under the 1974 treaty.
So, not exactly the strategic heartland it's sometimes made out to be.
Not physically, no. But politically, it casts a long shadow. Legally, though, it's pretty clear. The 1974 boundary settlement placed it in Sri Lankan waters.
And boundary treaties are serious business in international law.
Very serious. Pacta sunt servanda agreements must be kept. It's incredibly hard to undo them. This whole Indira Gandhi gifted the island narrative, it's a myth.
So what was the basis for India's decision then?
India looked at historical evidence. Sri Lankan administrative control going way back, Portuguese, Dutch times, even Jaffna kings. It wasn't arbitrary.
Are there precedents for this kind of decision?
Oh, yes. Think of the Minkiers and Ekerhos case between France and the UK, or the Ran of Kutch arbitration between India and Pakistan. Historical administration was key in those two.
And crucially, fishing rights are separate from the island's sovereignty.
Absolutely distinct. The treaty addressed the boundary. Fishing rights are a related but separate negotiation.
And there's another layer here, this idea of historic waters for the Palk Straits.
Yes, that's important. It means these waters have a stronger claim to sovereignty than standard territorial seas. It's like a recognized, long-standing ownership.
Is there legal backing for that?
There is. A Madras High Court case from way back in 1904, Anakumaru Pillai versus Muthupial. And oars recognize traditional fishing rights there. It has deep roots.
So, given all the shared history and the nature of the sea there,
UNCLOS, specifically Article 123, actually encourages cooperation in semi-enclosed seas like Palk Bay. It's almost a mandate for joint management.
So what could that look like in practice?
Well, maybe things like equitable quotas for fishing days, perhaps a joint research station on Kachathivu itself for marine science.
And what about reducing the pressure?
Promoting deep-sea fishing in India's own EEZ, the Exclusive Economic Zone. getting those bigger trawlers out of the sensitive nearshore waters.
So the overall message seems to be quiet cooperation, respecting treaties, and dialogue at multiple levels.
Exactly. Government to government, state to province, and crucially, community to community. That's the path towards, peace and shared prosperity in the region.
Okay, let's pivot now from those maritime issues to a different kind of international cooperation. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO.
Right, the recent Tianjin summit, Prime Minister Modi was there. China's ambassador Zhu Tihong offered some perspectives too.
And the SCO itself, it's grown massively, hasn't it? Now the world's largest regional organization.
It really has. And the summit reflected that. You had 23 countries, 10 international organizations represented. It was a major gathering.
What were the key outcomes? The article mentions high-yielding results.
Yeah, quite a bit came out of it. The Tianjin Declaration announced these 4 security centers. Things like an SKO Universal Center for Countering Security Challenges and Threats, an anti-drug center.
So a focus on security cooperation.
Definitely. Plus a decision to set up an SKO development bank. And strong statements supporting multilateral trade and, interestingly, defending the outcomes of World War II.
Defending WWII outcomes. What's the significance of that?
Well, it can be seen as part of a broader narrative-shaping effort, perhaps pushing back against certain historical interpretations often dominant in the West. It signals a collective stance.
And beyond security, development was also a major theme.
Huge focus. They adopted the SKO's development strategy for the next decade. And China put forward several initiatives.
Like what?
3 big platforms for China SKO cooperation, energy, green industry, digital economy, plus 3 cooperation centers for science and tech innovation, higher education, vocational training. Importantly, these are open to all member states.
So a push for shared growth across the bloc.
Yes, and this ties into the broader theme of global governance. President Xi's Global Governance Initiative was highlighted.
What are the core principles of that initiative?
It emphasizes things like sovereign equality, international rule of law, multilateralism, a people-centered approach, and focusing on real actions, not just talk. It's presented as a key framework for the SKO's vision of international relations.
And India's role in all this. We joined in 2017.
India's played a significant part since then.
Yeah.
And China specifically mentioned appreciating India's support during its presidency. That cooperation is noteworthy.
This year also marks the 75th anniversary of China-India diplomatic ties. Were there developments on that front in Tianjin?
There were. The leaders reached some new understandings. Phrases like good neighborly friends and partners. The dragon and the elephant dance together came up.
Sounds positive.
And Modi apparently stated they are partners, not rivals, stressing a long-term view where consensus outweighs disagreement. It suggests a strategic effort, despite ongoing tensions, to find common ground, especially in the global stage.
So looking ahead for the bilateral relationship, the article suggests 3 main areas for focus.
Yes. First, consolidating strategic trust, learning from the past, getting dialogue mechanisms back on track.
Second,
Expanding cooperation, using development as the common ground, tech, education, culture, tourism, poverty reduction, people-to-people links.
and the third area.
Enhancing good neighborliness, upholding the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, respecting core interests, keeping the border peaceful, and crucially, not letting the boundary dispute define the whole relationship.
So the idea is finding common ground as major developing nations in the global south.
Exactly. Shared interests in development, peace, global governance, and with both countries having upcoming BRICS presidencies, there's potential for joint efforts on things like that global governance initiative and perhaps presenting a united front against perceived hegemony.
Okay, let's shift focus now closer to home to India's tribal hinterlands and a really powerful idea presented in the opinion section.
Ah, yes, the idea that roads in areas affected by Maoist insurgency are more than just transport. They're like emissaries of the state.
Emissaries of the state, extending governance where it's been absent. What's the evidence for this?
Well, research from places like Chhattisgarh, Karkand, Odisha shows a pretty direct link. Road development seems to have a stabilizing effect. You see improvements in electricity access, employment, security.
How does that work? How do roads reclaim governance?
Because they break the isolation that non-state actors thrive in. These groups often fill the vacuum, creating parallel structures, informal courts, collecting taxes,
Like the studies on the Sicilian mafia, where organized crime steps in when the state isn't present.
Exactly like that. Diego Gambetta wrote about it. And we see insurgents trying to do similar things, sometimes even offering basic medical aid where there are no clinics.
Some researchers have documented this, right? Trying to gain legitimacy.
Yes, Alpa Shah, Human Rights Watch.
Ah.
But it's a strategy. As Zachariah Mampilli noted, it blurs the line between care and coercion.
Which brings us to the nature of that governance. It's not exactly democratic, is it?
Far from it. It lacks constitutional safeguards. These kangaroo courts, or Yana Dalits, they issue summary punishments, sometimes even executions. There's no due process, no appeal. It's described as more terror than tribunal.
So this is why building a road becomes such a political act.
Precisely. Research shows better road connectivity links to lower crime, better service access, and conversely, violence is often higher in poorly connected areas. Infrastructure is political. It signals presence, authority.
It establishes the state's reach.
Exactly. Formal state institutions, for all their flaws, operate within laws. They have scrutiny, accountability, legal limits. Informal justice systems, they often reflect power dynamics, leading to things like vigilante justice.
And the state seems to recognize this link between roads and authority.
Clearly. Look at Chhattisgarh's strategy under BVR Subramanyam. Roads were seen as fundamental. They enabled schools, clinics, police presence. The message was, the state has come in and is here to stay.
But it's not just about the road itself, is it?
No, absolutely not. Infrastructure alone isn't a magic bullet. A road can bring relief supplies, but it could also bring repression.
So what else is needed?
Institutional safeguards, proper justice systems, healthcare, real community consultation. The idea is the road should be built with the village, not just through it. That builds legitimacy.
And we also need to be wary of informal social norms that can be exclusionary, even if not violent, like cop panchayats sometimes.
Right. They also operate outside due process. Yeah. The ultimate aim here, with roads in these areas, isn't just about movement. It's about fostering belonging, connection.
So to build roads is to build peace. A powerful concept. Now let's move to the science section and a pretty stark assertion about the Himalayas. The headline says, rampant development, not climate, pushing Himalayas to the edge.
Yeah, that's a provocative framing. It points to recent disasters, those huge floods in Punjab, deaths in Kashmir, that village Darali just vanishing after a landslide.
And often these are just treated as, unprecedented acts of nature, like there's nothing we could have done.
But experts are pushing back hard on that narrative. Arinbhi Shrestha from ISOMOD is quoted saying, most of these natural disasters are not really natural at all.
Not natural? What does he mean?
He says they're a combination of two things. Climate change, yes, but also development. We have to remember, the Himalayas are young mountains, geologically speaking. They're inherently unstable, prone to floods, cloud bursts, landslides anyway.
And human activity makes it worse.
Dramatically worse. Even the Chief Justice, B.R. Gavai, expressed alarm about seeing tree logs in floodwaters, warning we might lose our forests.
And the Supreme Court itself earlier warned Himachal Pradesh might vanish in thin air, explicitly blaming human activity.
These are strong warnings from the highest levels. It forces us to ask, what kind of development is suitable there? It can't just be blueprints copied from cities.
So we need a different approach.
Definitely. Experts like Navneet Yadav and Himanshu Thakur stress the need for life cycle analysis for projects, assessing the carrying capacity of an area.
Carrying capacity, how much development an area can actually sustain without collapsing.
Exactly. And needing honest, independent social and disaster impact assessments with real public consultation, not just rubber stamping projects.
And the scale of current development is significant.
It's massive. Over 1,100 hydropower plants planned or underway in Himachal, 40 operational in Uttarakhand, plus roads being widened, new bridges, all involving heavy machinery blasting changing slopes.
And this directly increases the risk.
Yes. Mr. Thakur points specifically to highway construction. This human activity then interacts with climate change impacts, making things like glacial lake outburst, floods, GLOFs, more likely and severe.
GLOFs, that's when melting glaciers form lakes that then burst.
Right. Meltwater builds up behind natural dams, often made of moraine, which can be unstable. When they break, huge floods surge downstream. ISOMOD found over 25,000 glacial lakes by 2018. The potential danger is enormous.
Mr. Shrestha warned the Himalayas are at a tipping point. What's the solution then?
An urgent course correction, balancing economy and energy needs with environmental safety, using nature-based solutions and, crucially, involving local communities. They know their landscape.
And beyond specific projects.
Climate literacy is important so people understand the risks, better local self-governance. And, critically, we need to stop building essential infrastructure hospitals, schools in dangerous locations.
Why does that happen?
Often because the land is cheaper or more easily available in floodplains or on unstable slopes. It's described grimly as the worst kind of land. It's a terrible irony.
Tourism also contributes, doesn't it? The demand for hotels.
Drives deforestation, yes. Native trees like deodar are vital for holding soil. Removing them leads to erosion, increasing landslide and flood risks downstream.
So the message isn't no development, but smarter development.
Exactly. It is possible to develop without destroying the region's natural defenses, but it requires a fundamental shift in approach.
Okay, from the fragility of mountains, let's look at something surprisingly strong. Steel truss bridges, another piece from the science section.
Ah, yes, the backbone of transport networks since the late 19th century. Think Pamban Bridge, Howrah Bridge, Sarah Hut, iconic structures.
And they're still standing, often carrying way more traffic and facing tougher conditions than ever imagined.
It's quite remarkable, and it's been a bit of a puzzle for engineers. We know how they work when everything's intact, but why do some survive damage while others collapse?
That unpredictability is worrying.
It has been. But this new study in Nature sheds a lot of light. Researchers in Spain did some clever experiments.
What did they do?
They built a scaled-down Pratt truss bridge, a common design, and then deliberately damaged it, cutting different components. They used sensors, advanced computer models, ran over 200 scenarios.
Wow, quite thorough. What did they find?
They identified 6 specific ways the bridge redistributes load after a part fails.
Mm-hmm.
They call them fundamental secondary resistance mechanisms.
Secondary resistance, like backup systems.
Sort of. Things like panels distorting slightly, the whole structure twisting a bit, nearby members taking up slack in different ways, bending, bridging. The analogy used is like a spider web adapting when one thread breaks. The load finds other paths.
That's fascinating. So the bridge actively fights back against failure.
In a way, yes. And which mechanism takes over depends on which part fails. It's a dynamic response.
And how strong were these backup systems?
Surprisingly strong. The damaged model bridge could take up to 3 times the standard operating load before it finally collapsed.
3 times? That's a huge safety margin, even when damaged.
It is. They also saw differences in how failure spread. Damage to compression members led to more sudden, brittle failure. Damage to tension members led to a slower, more ductile failure. But collapse always involved a cascade of buckling.
So what are the real-world implications for bridge safety?
They're significant. Engineers can now design new bridges to specifically enhance these secondary mechanisms. And for existing bridges, inspections and strengthening efforts can focus on the parts critical for activating these secret defenses. It should lead to much more resilient structures.
Making our infrastructure safer. That's definitely good news. Okay, let's shift now to text and context and the world of Indian football.
Right, the big news being the Supreme Court giving the green light for the Indian Super League, the ISL, to start.
This was needed because the league organizer, FSDL, had put the season on hold back in July, wasn't it?
That's right, Football Sports Development Limited. The core issue was their long-term agreement with the All India Football Federation, the AIFF.
The Master Rights Agreement, or MRA.
Exactly. Signed in 2010 for 15 years, it expires this December 8th, 2025. Negotiations for renewal were stuck, and nobody wanted the contract expiring mid-season. FSDL pays AIFF about 50 crore rupees a year under this deal.
And the Supreme Court had gotten involved even before this recent decision.
Yes, back in April. The court was dealing with a separate case about the AIFF's constitution stemming from a 2017 ruling that AIFF elections violated the National Sports Code. So the court asked FSDL and AIFF to pause negotiations on the MRA until the constitution issue was settled.
To avoid having a potentially new AIFF committee immediately renegotiate everything.
Precisely. Then in August, the court asked them to find a workable arrangement to get the season started.
And they came up with a joint roadmap.
They did. The court accepted it prima facie on September 1st, calling it a significant step. So the plan now is Super Cup in late October, ISL starting in December, subject to Asian Football Confederation consent, of course.
What's in this roadmap? What did they agree on?
A key commitment is for an open, competitive, and transparent tender to select the commercial partner for the ISL going forward.
So FSDL might not continue running the league.
Correct. They might have to compete in the tender like anyone else. And significantly, FSDL agreed to waive some clauses from the old MRA, the right of first negotiation and right to match. They'll also issue a no-objection certificate for the tender.
When does this tender happen?
It's supposed to conclude by October 15th. They also sorted out payment of quarterly fees in the interim.
So what are the immediate hurdles now?
Well, finalizing that commercial partner through the tender, then sorting out broadcast deals, revenue sharing with the clubs. That needs to happen quickly.
And there's still the issue of the AIFF constitution itself.
Yes, and it's critical. FIFA and the AFC have given AIFF a stern ultimatum: adopt and ratify the new constitution by October 30th.
Is there a risk of another FIFA suspension? Like what happened in 2022?
Unlikely, seems to be the consensus. That suspension happened because a committee of administrators was running AIFF, seen as undue interference. Now, there's an elected committee in place.
And the Supreme Court is expected to formally ratify the new constitution soon.
Yes, the judgment finalizing the Constitution, drafted by Justice L. Nageswara Rao, is expected imminently. That should satisfy FIFA and AFC.
What about the National Sports Governance Act, 2025? Does that play a role?
The court noted it, but decided not to wait for its notification, which could take months. They prioritized getting the football season underway.
Okay, one last topic for today, also from Text and Context. The challenging situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the DRC.
Yes, focusing on the elusive search for peace in eastern DRC,
Yeah.
specifically looking at two recent diplomatic efforts.
Which were?
First, a U.S. brokered peace agreement between Rwanda and the DRC back on June 27th. And second, a Qatar-mediated ceasefire deal between the Congolese government and the M23 rebel group on July 19th.
Let's unpack the U.S. broker deal first. What did it involve?
Rwanda and DRC committed to stop hostilities, respect borders, and crucially, end support for armed groups. They also agreed to set up joint security and economic frameworks relatively quickly.
Why would the DRC and Rwanda agree?
For the DRC, U.S. involvement held the promise of help against illicit mineral trade, security aid, and U.S. investment. For Rwanda, which the UN accuses of backing the M23 rebels, there was significant international pressure to sign.
And the Qatar deal.
That was directly between the DRC government and M23, an immediate ceasefire, a deadline for a full peace agreement, M23 withdrawal from seized areas, and DRC releasing M23 prisoners.
Now, the article mentions U.S. interests. What are they in this region?
Minerals. Primarily access to the DRC's absolutely vast critical mineral wealth, estimated at $24 trillion. We're talking 70% of the world's cobalt, plus coltan, copper, diamonds, gold, tin.
Essential for modern technology.
Absolutely. And also strategically, potentially reducing the dominance of Chinese companies in the DRC's mining sector.
So the big question, did these peace deals actually hold?
Sadly, no. The ceasefire in particular broke down very quickly. M23 launched new attacks in North and South Kivu just days later. Human Rights Watch reported over 140 deaths in July alone.
So the commitments weren't met.
Neither side fully complied. M23 didn't withdraw as promised, and the DRC didn't release the prisoners. It's a pattern we've seen before in this conflict.
Despite the failure, is there any positive takeaway?
Well, the direct involvement of major players like the U.S. and Qatar did bring the parties to the table. It created some hope, maybe opened a small window for trust. Qatar apparently even resumed talks in late August.
So diplomacy hasn't completely stopped.
No, but the DRC has a long, tragic history of failed peace deals. It shows commitment is hard to guarantee.
Why is peace so difficult to achieve there?
Because the root causes are incredibly deep and complex. They go back to the 1994 Rwandan genocide, the subsequent Congo wars, long-standing ethnic tensions, competition over resources. These agreements didn't really address those fundamental issues.
So just getting signatures on paper isn't enough.
Not nearly enough. You need a truly comprehensive peace process that tackles those root causes, combined with sustained international effort and pressure. Otherwise, lasting peace will likely remain elusive.
A complex and sobering situation indeed. Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.